New revelations regarding the events leading up to the deadly Italian cruise ship disaster. The captain of the boat seen cavorting on the bridge with a beautiful blonde just minutes before the wreck. Reportedly had her on the ship as his guest as well. Witnesses say she was wined and dined by the captain that night and was on the bridge. With all this, will it all force the cruise industry to change its procedures in order to convince leery travelers to get back on board? Let's ask our power players. We have Mark Murphy, Lundell McMillan, and Francis Newton. Lundell, first to you. We remember Johnson & Johnson when they had to deal with that awful Tylenol situation where there was poison. Instead of covering up, they came right out very forcefully, said, we really screwed up. We're going to change our procedures. They got ahead of the regulators. Does the cruise industry have to do the same?
Absolutely. I think you have to be proactive and you have to be fully transparent. This is a tragedy. Let's face it, it's a tragedy of major proportions, and the extent of the damage is still unknown. So our condolences goes to the families. But I think the sooner that they take a lead position in this, the better.
Well, Mark, the fact is that you actually have video now. Do we have that video of the crew telling I guess we don't, but there's actual homemade video of the crew telling the passengers in Italian to go back to their rooms.
Right. Like
that advice, let's see, listen up for a second. This is extraordinary. Okay, all right. We don't have, they have a caption below in another version that I've seen. What she is telling the passengers right now, go back to your cabins. That advice, Mark, probably led to the death of people. She essentially was sending some of those people to their death.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what happened, and it's terrible. Ironically, the captain actually ordered dinner after the ship had hit the rock. So there were people there, and until stuff started falling off shelves in the kitchen, people were still cooking and making meals because the captain's sitting there saying, I'm going to have something to eat.
And Francis, the question is who the captain was eating with. Now we have word that there's this 24-year-old woman, a woman named Dominica Sermont, I think is her name, 25-year-old that he picked up at one port of call. She was on the register. She was apparently a friend of the captain. And what's going on with that? He invited her up to the bridge. Was he so distracted by his personal duties that it affected his ability to guide the ship?
Well, he certainly didn't do a good job for one reason or another. I think the most interesting thing about this woman is her story conflicts with the audio tape that was recorded on board, and it also conflicts with witness reports. And I think that she has a moral obligation to the victims to give the facts as they are. I don't think defending the captain at this point serves anyone. I do feel sorry for him. Obviously, his negligence has proved to be disastrous, maybe beyond what somebody would say is fair. However, I think that's the most fascinating thing about this woman is she seems to be protecting the captain.
She does. But Mark, again, now you have the cruise ship industry, not just the folks who are involved in this, but the whole industry. They have a choice. They can either sit back and wait and see how this plays out. Maybe some of them are kind of glad. They hope to take some market share. I mean, that's a very Darwinian notion of the whole thing. But the fact is, if they get ahead of the situation, they won't get regulated the way the regulators are going to come in if they don't do something.
Well, here are the facts. This is affecting the entire cruise industry. Only 5% of consumers who called their travel agent after this incident were concerned about safety on Costa specifically. 34%. 7 times as many were concerned about crew safety in general. So it's not like they're going to pick up market share. The average consumer is worried about the market as a whole. So the cruise lines need to be proactive. Right now, up until this point, the travel agent market that sells 70% of all cruises has acted as the crisis managers for the cruise lines. And the cruise lines need to take that lead with the consumers.
And while being proactive, you also just have to be careful of the legal risks associated with it. Obviously, it's an ongoing investigation. You got the criminal investigation, but you've got major civil liability that's going to be there. So while you want to be proactive for the commerce and the business of it, you got to be careful what statements you make.
I think even what Johnson & Johnson found out, and they had the same concerns, the legal concerns, what they found out, you have to ignore those. It may sound crazy, your lawyers are telling you otherwise, you can't ignore them, but you have to be so proactive that you might even be helping some of these lawsuits against you. Otherwise, the whole industry goes down. Guys, we've got to leave it at that. Oil companies make big profits, and some House Democrats say they should decide how